Good morning. So, Genki English in government schools. How do you go about teaching Genki English in government schools? Because I've had a few teachers writing in and saying I've been focusing too much on private language teachers and neglecting all my government school teachers. So, apologies for that. So let's get down to it today and see how we can help you guys get some cool stuff. So, first of all, is academically. So academically, Genki English was designed for primary schools. I wrote it when I was teaching in primary schools and also junior high schools. So in primary school, I had the problem of, at that time I just had 30 kids in a class, how to keep 30 kids engrossed in the materials, wanting to learn and leaning forward, not being like this, getting them energized. And then the big challenge was then getting them to remember everything for the next lesson. And that's why I wrote Genki English. And then in junior high school, I had the issue that the kids had learned lots and lots of stuff in the books and stuff, but couldn't speak it, couldn't pronounce it, didn't enjoy it. And that's why I developed the Genki English software. So in the computer room, the high school kids could go on there and get caught up on all the language that they knew but didn't actually know how to use. So academically wise, I think Genki English is the best program out there for government schools. And the reason I talk a lot on social media about private school teachers is because social media tends to give me a lot of private school teachers rather than government school ones. And also, financially, it's easier for private school teachers. They can go out and get one extra student and that pays for the teacher's set. So, obviously government school teachers, we don't have that luxury. The government doesn't give us any more salary if we add an extra student or an extra 10 students to our class. They just say, go and teach them with the same money or even less each year with inflation. But anyway, so academically, no problem. And if you look at the Genki English research, the university research on how we do Genki English, the Harvard research was done on government schools in Tanzania. The University of Newcastle research was done on Genki English in government schools and private schools, comparing the two in India. We got government schools around the world. In Thailand, they put Genki English for 800,000 primary school kids in Thailand, which was huge. And also, I trained thousands and thousands of teachers around the world. So academically, there's no problem. If you look at the lesson plans, the Genki English lesson plan, for each of the lesson plan, the input stage tends to be the same, whether it's private or government. And then usually it's the output stage, because you have to deal with more kids in government schools, whether that's 30 or 40, if you're in quite a small environment, or those of you in China and India where you have 120, 150 kids in one class. Or like I used to do, I used to teach 1,000 kids at once in primary schools. So in that case, you need slightly different techniques. So if you look at the lesson plans, for every lesson plan, the first recommended game is actually the one that works best in government schools. It's the one to choose if you're in government schools. Yeah. Works exactly again it works in private schools, but for government ones, it's the first one you need. Okay, and the first one that we've first game on there is the one that's designed for zero prep and for lots of students practicing together. Okay, because you don't have time in government schools to be handing out pieces of paper and worksheets and all this sort of stuff. It just takes up too much time. You need to really focus and use the time really, really well there. And if you've got 30 kids, the discipline, it's all the discipline stuff is straight. If you've got 120, 150 kids in one class, you will need an assistant, definitely, because the kids right at the back, however student-centered we make this, and however cool the materials is, at the back, they probably can't hear you very well. So you will need an assistant just to be walking around, listening, making sure, see if there are any things you missed or things that you need to catch up with. Yeah. So academically, no problem at all. I'd say, at one point, Genki English was the most popular way of teaching in primary schools in Japan. And I'd say, Thailand and everywhere else, they did these huge projects, and we've got lots of things around the world. So it's the best program there academically. The question is, if you're in government school, is how do you get the program in there? And also for a lot of teachers, how do you finance it? Where do you get the money from to do it? So The question, so two things here. Let's look at two different ways of doing it. The first one is if you only need the teacher's set, if you just want the materials for you to teach Genki English, either to add it to an extra textbook. So for example, what some government schools and some countries do is they take the textbook and their list of topics and then they add in the appropriate Genki English lesson. And that means you get all the advantages of the Genki English software, the songs and the games, the pronunciation fluency, but you're still covering the curriculum. So that's one thing is, or if you've got freedom of curriculum, if you can follow the government guidelines, which in every country in the world, the government guidelines are actually awesome. If you're free to follow those, then you just do the Genki English curriculum as it is. So this is if you only need the teacher's set, it's one way. The second thing to look at is if you are into academic research or educational research or a very forward-thinking school and you want to look at the flipped classroom with Genki English, how do you do that? So two different things. If you only need the teacher's set or if you need the flipped classroom. So if you only need the teacher's set, there's a couple of ways of doing this. The first one is if you are in an ultra-low income country, and by that I don't mean, a lot of people write to me and say, my school, the kids in my school are so poor. But then you realize that their country is spending billions and billions of dollars on education, okay? So we're not talking about that. We're talking about slums of India, slums around the edges of places in China, if you're allowed to teach it there. Slums in various other places, really low, ultra-low income. If you're in ultra-low income areas, we do have special projects where we can fund the program and put it into your schools. Now, instead of a financial investment from your schools, what we ask for in that case is an investment from the community, an educational investment. So what we want from you in that case is a promise or a goal from the community. The community has to decide. You can't just say, hey, I'm going to bring education to this village and this is what we're going to do. It doesn't work. You need community buy-in. It all has to come from the community. And so community leaders have to give you a goal, an educational goal, and a way of measuring it. Because obviously, what very happens is, you teach Genki English in your community. They get awesome results, but the people who can't speak English, they don't realize what's happening. So they think, oh, that teacher's not doing anything, and it fades out. We want sustainable development that gets more and more each year. So if you're in a community like that, we need a goal from the community and a way of measuring it, okay? And if you have those, and obviously Genki English fits with the goal, we can fund the intervention, we can fund the Genki English materials for your school if you're in an ultra-low income area. Does that sound okay? If you're in that sort of place, let me know. I'll get in touch with you. Okay, the second thing is, of course, ideally, it would be awesome if your school all paid for the teacher's set for you. For those of you in richer countries, countries spend billions and billions and trillions of dollars on educational materials. Unfortunately, they spend it on the wrong things. They spend it on piles of textbooks which weigh the kids' backs down and cause them physical damage that then don't help with their English and stuff. So the way to look at it, if you're a government school teacher and you want the Genki English teacher's set, is think about it, you paying for it yourself. Now, no other teachers are going to go, oh, no, I can't possibly do that. Okay, so let's just try and figure this out. So I'd say if you were a private English teacher, it's easier because they just get one new student, pays for the set. If you're a government school teacher, you have to look at the time it will save you, okay? So we've got 100 lessons in the Genki English teacher's set. If you get paid $10 an hour, how many hours of preparation is it going to save you if you buy the teacher's set yourself? That's the question, yeah? So, it's $500. Is it going to save you 50 hours of preparation time? If so, it's probably worthwhile getting, Would you spend $10 to have an extra hour with your kids? And I think most people will say yes, yeah? Now, on the website, you can have the thing, you can pay for it monthly. There's also a 12-month top secret 12-month payment plan where you can pay for it over 12 months. If you're interested in that, then send me an email and we'll get it done. And that way, it only has to save you 5 hours a month of lesson prep time, and it's paid for itself. Yeah, cool. The third way of getting it is to get your school to buy it for you, okay? And again, a lot of people go, oh, it's impossible. Oh, okay, there are magic tricks around this. So in some countries, it's easy because you just say to the school, you say, okay, I want to try this set of materials, and they just buy it for you in some places. If you're lucky, if they have budgets, it's great. Because if you look how much the school is paying for the English materials you're using right now, it's obscene. I mean, just the computer software and things they buy and the CDs, so there's super inflated prices. It's crazy. So some schools do it. Sometimes you have to look for another budget. So for example, because Genki English is software, very often you can get the computer teacher to buy it for you and get it out of the computer budget, okay? And the computer teachers love that because they get more money when other subjects are using their computer rooms. If the computer room is only for ICT, then they don't get as much money. But usually if the English program and it becomes, you get measurable results, then they get more funding for more computers and more toys in the future. So that's one thing. Library budgets sometimes as well, you can use that to buy the teacher's set, to ask as well. But if you're pretty adamant that my school won't pay, then think about it yourself. Of how much time it would save you. And if you're earning $10 an hour, will it save you 50 hours of time? I think it probably will. So that's for the teacher's set. And, it's not thousands and thousands of dollars. We're not doing it as a franchise where you have to pay $40,000, $50,000 or whatever and force sell stuff. It's $500, which for most people is more than affordable if you look at the amount of time it saves you. It's cool. The tricky part is if you're in government school and you want to do the flipped classroom, because this one needs budgets. So in case you haven't heard, quick review, flipped classroom is how we balance out education opportunity and equality. Because when you have 30 kids in a class or 100 kids in a class, you can't teach to everybody's level. Okay. Now, traditionally, teachers have got around this by using textbooks, and the kids can work through the textbook at their own level. But of course, English, you can't learn from a textbook because there's no pronunciation in there. Grammar, you can't learn naturally from there, and it doesn't help with communication. So the only way to do that when you've got a lot of kids is to use computers, just like every other subject uses computers. So if the kids have got computer games where they can play at their own pace, listen to the words and phrases in lots of ways, that's how they get the grammar and the pronunciation and things. And the key is, with the flipped classroom, the kids learn the topic before you teach it. So if next week is going to be, what are you doing? Then they would do that this week for homework. And it works wonders. And one of the reasons it works really well is because in class, if a kid doesn't understand, if they're really brave, they might put their hand up once and say, "Sir, miss, excuse me, I don't understand. Can you tell me that?" And you might explain it. But if they still don't understand, there's no way they're going to put their hand up again and say, "Sorry, I still don't get it," because they've just been taught that's not done, yeah? Whereas in a flipped classroom, the cool thing is the kids can learn and repeat and repeat and repeat, and they repeat 1,000,000 times until they've got it. Repetition is the mother of skill, okay? It takes 10,000 hours to learn English, and some kids will actually do that, even if you might think they're weaker, in inverted commas, don't like that word, but if you think they're weaker in general class on their own, they probably work really well. So they need the software at home. Now, this is the tricky part, is that obviously the software costs money. We can't, some people say, just give it away free for everybody. We tried that before. And whenever we've tried that in places, we would do it for free. Our teams would be working for free. We get paid nothing. The kids would get awesome results. But then the textbook companies would still get their millions of dollars from the textbooks, and they'd get the credit. So they began, "This class have done super well. It's amazing, isn't it?" And the textbook reps are like, "Oh, yes, they use our textbook." And like, "No, they don't. They use our program." But because they put the budgets for the textbooks, we didn't get the credit. So that happens a lot, which is crazy. And also, it costs a lot of money to keep Genki English developed. Yeah, we've spent over $1 million on the Genki English program, well over. It's probably several million. Obviously, marketing takes a lot of money as well, but which is why all you sharing this on Facebook really makes a huge difference. But we spent over $1 million on the software, and it takes a lot of money each year to develop. So obviously, we can't give it away free for everybody, even though we'd absolutely love to. It has to be paid for too, so we can pay the developers, and we can keep improving the program and make it work on new devices. So it's taken us 10 years to get it working on phones, tablets. So the best way to do it is, again, if your school is really into education and really into educational development, ask if there are any research grants available. And a lot of countries have research grants available for schools where you can get a set of money and you can use that, and as long as you academically measure the outcome, you can put projects in place where they will pay for the students to have access, you'll measure the results, and you can do it like that. That's one way of doing it. The EU is fantastic. If any of you are in the EU, I love the EU. Got my EU citizenship taken away from me last year, but the EU is amazing. They have lots of projects you can apply for these sort of things, where they'll pay for all the materials you need. If you need overtime, they'll pay for that as well. If you need assistance, they'll help you with that. And as long as you measure everything and you know how to measure the students' results, there's all sorts of ethics around that, how you do it and things. But they will actually pay for it. So we had one great school in the Czech Republic. They got an EU grant. All the kids had the Genki English. At that time, it was USB software. And they just crushed it. The kids would come to class, the next lesson, and they'd know everything. The teacher would do the lines quiz, and all the kids were going bam, bada, bam, bada, bam. And the teacher was like, whoa. And then the teacher were freaking out because the kids didn't, they were like, what do we do now? They know everything. It's like, isn't that the point of school, that they know everything and they can use it? So it's cool. So ask if you can get some grants or the EU. If not, you might just have to go with the teacher set thing and just go for it that way. As I say, if we can get maybe 3 or 4 million from funding from Google or something, we may be able to do it free for all schools. But then again, we still have to have some sort of income to keep it updating all the time. So it's not really possible there. But if you've got grants like that, figure it out. If not, just go for the teacher's set, because seriously, it is going to make a huge difference for your school. Tech-wise, all you need is a TV. You just take your computer in and you plug it HDMI into your TV, and it's going to take away a ton of your stress. It's going to help a load of the kids because it's so visual, because it's so interactive, and because we've tested it with, it's not tested on animals, it's tested with kids, all these kids around the world. So it gets great results. For the homework one, a few people have asked about as well, also about tech, and say students don't have access to computers, students don't have access to the internet. So looking at this from a big picture point of view, we've got millions and millions of kids using Genki English. 10 years ago, we were looking at a place like Tanzania. Everybody, within a margin of error, had access to a mobile phone. That was what we found out. Just about everybody had access to one. Not their own, they had access to one. And that was 3G technology. And so we extrapolated it out. And if you look, within 5 years, then most kids would have access to a smartphone. By now, all kids everywhere in the world have access to a smartphone. That's all you really need, okay? And within margin of error. So maybe 95% of your kids will have access to a smartphone, okay? A smartphone with 3G, you can do Genki English. You can do it. It works. It's amazing. It's fantastic. It takes a while, but it works. It's cool. Now, if you are really worried about this and the tech inequality thing, with that final 5%, how do you get the 5% of kids to get technology and things? You just do a tech drive. You would do a donation thing, and you say, you do a big charity event, you get people to donate all their old tech, phones, tablets, computers. You get some local tech guys to check them out, revamp them. Most of them don't work, but some of them will, and then you can give those to the kids if they really need technology. That solves the hardware problem. Doesn't solve the software problem, because you still need to pay for it. So you still need to get the grants to help you do it. Okay, but I spent. Genki English was always developed for primary schools. I know I talk a lot about private English teachers on here, and I know maybe a lot of the blog posts are focused on trying to get private English teachers to use it, which is cool. It's awesome. Originally I designed it for government schools. The reason I do this is because I hated school. It was as boring as anything, and now I hate seeing kids being bored. I hate seeing kids in first grade with massive backs of books on their backs, which aren't going to teach them anything. And then they're just sat there regurgitating knowledge, which Google will be able to tell them in 2 seconds. We need educational reform. Obviously, governments are not really into it. A lot of governments don't want their populace speaking English, but that's a whole politics thing. We'll talk about that later. But if we can help government schools improve, that was my original idea. That's what I wanted to do with Genki English. I was a government school teacher. I could see that with Genki English, all the kids loved it. You may have some kids on the 99% success rate is what we aimed for, yeah? And we usually got that at the time, yeah? So that was cool. And I spent 10 years going around government schools for free, doing government school training for teachers and helping teachers out. And very quickly, what we figured was that one teacher can change one classroom. You can change your classroom, and I'll come back to that in a second. But if you want to change the whole country, you have to go through politics. And as we all know, politics is a right mess. It's just horrendously complicated. The Thailand project worked great. First year, I went in there, 1,000 teachers. They went, this is awesome, we want it for all our schools. The government said, cool, how can we get it? They got the funding, they got the teachers set to every single teacher in the country. Wow, brilliant. Next year, I had to go out, figure out a way to train 10,000 teachers. We did it using a pyramid system. It's cool. Then they put the Genki English software on 800,000 tablets for kids. Awesome, brilliant, cool, what's next? A government coup, changed the government, and they scrapped all the plans. And we've had that in a lot of places. Like, for example, in India as well, we got such amazing results for the government schools in India. And we put it to the local, you have to go through all the different levels, all the different politics. Local level, awesome, brilliant, As soon as we started getting up, you've got to get Delhi, though. You have to get Delhi. From where we are down here, we don't have the authorities. We have to go up to Delhi, do projects in Delhi. And then, okay, we need to get the permissions of the authorities in Delhi. And going through it, and we just didn't have the resources. And also, I didn't have the... how can we say, the flexibility, shall we say, to go through what you have to go through for some politics stuff. Because a lot of most politicians are not in it for the kids, they're in it for themselves, and you have to lubricate them with certain cash and things like that, which I didn't want to go into and do it. So that's why I started doing more stuff on the internet and stuff, and that's why I want to help more teachers, because you, in your classroom, can make a difference. I thought I could get all teachers. I originally thought when I was teaching 1,000 kids a day, I was like, I'm teaching 1,000 kids a day. Cool. How many days do I need to teach every kid on the planet? And it was like impossible. It's like, okay, I'm going to need some help. So that's when I came and started doing teacher training. So I could help teachers, and then you could go and do this cool stuff in your classes. Yeah. And again, what we found, the problem there was most teachers don't care. In government schools, most teachers just don't care. You're watching this now, you care. Now, the reasons they don't care, there are lots of different reasons. Obviously, overwork, not paid enough. The wrong people are in the job. They're not into education. A lot of people just do it because they couldn't get other jobs. They do it because in some countries, if you fail your government exams, you can't work for the government. You have to become a teacher. Like, first rule of harvest is you put the best seeds and you get the best plants. But anyway, so politics failed. Going for all the teachers failed. What we have left is you in your classroom, and you and your network of teachers, the people you work with. Because what I always said was that, whatever happens, even if I was in, for example, I would get sent to schools sometimes where I could tell from the headmaster's handshake. I just knew what the school was going to be like. I could walk in there, I would look in their eyes, and if the headmaster was like cool, they were open. Usually if they were a woman, if you're a female headmistress, they're so much better because they've had to struggle more. They've had to put a lot more work in. They've got to be really passionate to get to that level, yeah? Very often if it was a guy, they'd be like, and all this sort of stuff. Very often, I'd walk into schools and they'd be like, sorry, foreigners in our school, get out of here. I've had that, yeah? Or some people say, oh, no, our children, they once had a foreigner came into school last year. They're completely internationalized now. So, but whatever the case was, even if I was in a situation which was really bad, sometimes I would turn up with 1,000 kids. I would ask for a sound system to play the music on and a microphone, and they wouldn't give me it. And I was there with 1,000 kids. What do? I've still got another 1,000 kids tomorrow. If I start talking really loud, I'm going to lose my voice. But what do I do in that situation? And the choice it always came down to for me was I've got to do my best right now for the kids who are in front of me right now. If I've got 1,000 kids and I ain't got no microphone and I can't use any music, it's going to be hard, but I've got to do it. If I have to bring my own computer to school and my own speakers, I used to do that. Huge backpack, it used to be a rolly thing. I bring the speakers, a ton of cables with me so I could plug everything in. This before we had computers and stuff, yeah. and bring it so we can have a better experience for the kids. If I had to buy, my own materials, my own books, I would do it just to get the best results for the kids. And that's it. Whatever you can do right now for your kids, the class in front of you right now, the class you have this year, do your best for them. I'm totally here to help. We give a ton of stuff away free in the email course. There's a ton of stuff free on the website. If you need the materials, hopefully they work out at your hourly rate. And as I say, if you're in an ultra low income area, we've got special programs for you too. But government school teachers, I realize I don't pay you all enough. Attention, and I also don't give you enough credit for the really hard work you do. If we've got any private school English teachers on here now, private, you've got it easy compared with the government school teachers. Private school teachers, you can go out and get an extra class and earn a Mercedes or whatever it is you want. Yeah, it's so easy. Any fear you have is just in your head because you can infinitely expand. Yeah, and we've got things for you guys as well. But in government schools, it's a lot more difficult because your income's fixed, your time is fixed, your regulations are fixed. You can very often get round the regulations, but do your best for the class that's in front of you. I'm here to help where I can. Please tell me off again if I'm ignoring you guys or not giving you guys enough attention or enough help. You can always email me every day. I get lots and lots of emails from teachers, and I'm always here to help. So far, for 20 years, I've answered every single email a teacher has sent me. Crazy. Sometimes I don't get it all done in the first day, but I try my best. Sometimes spam filters get in the way, but I always try and do it. And if any of you are into educational development, if you've got projects where you see a community that it wants change, if you've got a school that wants change, they don't know how to do it, they've got problems, whether that's with poverty or malnutrition, or with educational development, or with getting into school, or literacy, any of those types of problems, I can probably help out because I've done so many projects around the world. There are a lot of things that I can't help out with. Violence and stuff like that, I tend not to go there because I can't afford if my head goes there, it depress me too much. So I can't help in those situations. But a lot of other, basically any other government school situation, I've probably done a project somewhere in the world that will give you some lessons that will help you out. And I've certainly got the materials because, as I say, Genki English is by far the best program there is for government schools. Private schools, you've got other options. I still think it's probably the best in private school. But if you, there may be some other things you could do. But in government school, Genki English is by far the best because I made it for you guys. I'm one of you. I was a government school teacher. I want to do it because I was a kid in government school and I want to make it more fun, easier to learn. So then we can start doing all the cool stuff like learning about robots and AI or whatever it is your kids are into and get easy subjects like English just so it's like, done that, cool, I can speak English, what's next? Bring it on. As I say, you're the key to this. If you've been watching so far, thank you. If you've got a friend who needs a little bit of help, tell them about Genki English. And if you've got questions, email me. And above all, when you're in the classroom next time, just think, right, what can I do for my kids now? What is the best thing I can do to change their lives in a positive way and be the huge impact that you are on your kids anyway? And how can you make that more and more and more positive so more and more kids love school, get great results, get great grades if that's what they want, and just leave school with the skills that they need to go out into the world, make it a better place. Look at all the United Nations development goals. They're amazing. Let's start working on things like that so we can change the world. The world is getting better every year. Yeah, we had a little blip last year, but it's getting better. Yeah, I'm reading about Mozart and Beethoven and stuff like that. And the world they lived in was crazy with disease and way worse equality and things like that. We're getting better. We're not perfect. There's still a ton of problems, but we're getting better. And it all comes down to teachers like yourselves being Genki, having that energy there. Genki is your internal energy and making that energy bigger and bigger and bigger and spreading it out to your kids and your community. So I'm Richard from Genki English. I hope this helped. Let me know in the comments if you did, and I'll catch you later. Bye-bye.